Welcome to another episode of Everybody's Got Something. I'm your host, Seth Hoffman. We have our wonderful guest today, musician, teacher, RJ Perez, and clinical nurse specialist, Io Berg. We've got a treat for you. Let's get into it. It's good to be here today. Well, there are some amazing things happening in the world, some inspiring people doing wonderful things. And I'm very privileged today to be here with one of my great heroes in the world, Mr. RJ Perez. RJ, first just tell us a little about yourself. It's okay. Yeah.
Hello, Seth. My name is
J.
RJ Perez. I'm just kidding, man. Thanks for having me on your show,
It's
man.
a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
It's good to be here.
Yes.
Thanks for doing such a cool show that just highlights so many talented people, not just musicians and artists, but you know,
we live in a hotbed of treasures in this town of just talented people who are doing inspiring things. And I've been wanting to get you on the show for a long time, so I'm excited to hear. You're probably, I would say, about the hardest working musician out there. You're gigging, playing all around, spreading your goodness to so many people.
Oh, thanks.
And you're a full-time teacher as well.
That's right.
So part of what I'd love to hear is your journey as a musician and as a teacher, and just how do you balance everything, and just what wisdom can you share?
Yeah, you know, I think one thing that I feel is just extremely lucky to have just been sort of the right place at the right time. And I think Albuquerque has always been a haven for artists, musicians. I think there's a lot of support, and I think there's a lot of creative people here.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from just a snippet of how you first picked up a guitar till, being the front man for Civitas, which some people know, to being the fingerstyle legend that you have developed into, and just a little, what led to this path and all the things that got you where you are?
Yeah, you know, gosh, you know, as a teenager, you know, obviously I loved playing the guitar. It was electric guitar, and it was the 90s, so it was a lot of metal and grunge and that sort of thing. I think just eventually I ended up going to UNM to study music, and that kind of opened up a lot of opportunities for me, and obviously, the training was invaluable. So my first degree is a classical guitar performance degree, and then along the path I got to meet some music educators who were specifically guitar teachers teaching in Albuquerque public and private schools. Some real legends like John Truitt, David Ostrovitz.
And were you thinking of being a teacher back then, or was that something that wasn't part of the plan, or it wasn't an exciting thought then?
Not always. Not always. I felt like I wanted to go get a degree, and I knew music was a serious passion of mine, but I didn't think I'd become a teacher at first. Yeah. But the opportunities kind of came about in my life, and I was lucky enough to get referred to a private instruction job through the guitar professor, Michael Chapdelaine. Yeah. And he referred me to a job teaching at a music store.
And that was Mark's?
At Mark's Guitar, yeah, right across from UNM. And then
So you've been how long have you been teaching? How many years have you been actually in guitar instruction?
Yeah, as a classroom guitar teacher, I've been teaching for about 11 years now. Wow. And I don't teach private lessons anymore, but I taught private lessons for about 15 years. Wow. And was doing both simultaneously. Yes. For a little while.
And so I'm curious, so I know there's a love for music, and you have a love for teaching and for performing. is this ideal if one day someone said, all right, now you get paid, I don't know, like say 10,000 for performance. So if you don't want to teach, you don't have to. Is it something that you treasure getting to do both, or is it something that one day, do you have a dream? Would you love to just be gigging? Would you like to be gigging more or less? Like if we could manifest your dream life, would it look just like it is now? Because it's pretty awesome, I have to say, from an outsider's perspective. But how do you feel about it?
I think it would be pretty close to what I'm doing now. Maybe not tied to just kind of like that full-time working for the retirement and the pension sort of thing. But still, I still love teaching. I mean, I do miss private instruction. Maybe I would kind of do that, or maybe even just have like a small school for myself to just private instruction, or a team of teachers would be cool.
Very
but
cool.
yeah,
Very cool.
but
Very cool.
yeah, I've been fortunate enough to really, call performing an actual.
I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Part of my career.
You do it about as much as anybody I've ever known to do it. So speaking of, what song will you be sharing with us? You're going to share a couple songs today. What's the first one you're going to be sharing with us?
Yeah, I'll be, the first song I'm going to play is Bob Marley's Is This Love? And it starts with pure finger style, and then at the end there'll be a little bit of looping at the end.
And can you just, for those who don't know, what finger style? What's just a basic, what does finger style mean?
Yeah, and I guess, the older term that people used to use, which I think is a little more descriptive, they used to call it chord melody.
Oh, okay.
Because what you're playing in the song is, you're expressing, as a guitarist, you're expressing the chords, you're expressing the melody kind of simultaneously, and now even adding the backbeat to the song.
So you're essentially playing a rhythm section, bass section, a melody section, and all at once.
Yeah. It's similar to what like a classical guitarist would do.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure.
All right. And this arrangement, this is your own arrangement of it, or?
This is my own arrangement of this Bob Marley song.
All right. Well, let's enjoy it. Let's check it out.
Great.
All right, thank you. That's gorgeous.
Thanks, man.
Gorgeous.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Gorgeous. And so how do you decide? You know, when you're gonna do a new arrangement, what strikes you to say, okay, this is a song I'd really like to give my RJ twist to see what I can do with it.
Yeah, I think it's a delicate balance. I think there's a balance between songs that I've always loved and songs that I think my audiences at breweries and restaurants would enjoy and that they can relate to.
Yeah.
Because when I graduated with the classical guitar degree, I'm not trying to knock classical music, but I think that it has a certain, a limited curb appeal to regular audiences.
Got it. Because you play in quite a variety of places, and for so many people, there's probably a few people in Albuquerque who haven't at least one time been blessed with your music. Oh. How do you, you know, because you play so much. I remember when for people who maybe play once every 2 months, you know, they build up to this thing, and the night before, okay, here's the gig, where you're doing it, you know, sometimes 20 times a month and more. So does it change the excitement? Does it get tiring? Do you still get little butterflies sometimes? What is it like for you after doing so many gigs? How do you stay fresh? How do you stay energetic? Yeah,
that's a great question, and there is a point where it does feel like a job. Mm-hmm. And especially if I'm coming from my day job. So I've taught all day, maybe had a meeting after school, and then had to go on to a gig, not to mention trying to balance family life too. But so sometimes it can feel a little routine, but usually once I'm there and in the moment and really just enjoying myself and just enjoying entertaining people, I guess it feels good, even if you're tired. It feels great.
And what is the role for you as far as the people who are there? I know sometimes it's more of a concert, like where people are hanging out every note. Sometimes people are eating whatever. How does that affect you? Does it have a big influence over how you're feeling when you're playing? As you look around.
Yeah, that's a great question too. And you could probably speak to this as being a really experienced performer, but. You know, I think after doing it several hundred times, you start to understand it's like you just don't take it personal.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like, well, this crowd wants to eat and they want to enjoy their food and they don't need something really loud. And I'm okay with that.
Yes.
And then there's some places that really just places and people, certain combinations of people that really exchange that energy with you.
Yes.
And then the jokes start coming out and you know, and you start.
Because my favorite times seeing you, and because that's one of the things I love, how there's sort of not a wall between you and the people hearing the music. So when there's some exchange, it just feels very comfortable. We feel like we're hanging out with a buddy. Even people who don't know you, they're like, oh, I like this guy.
Yeah. And I think that's just one thing that I try and do to keep it just loose. Personal and loose and not, because I do, I mean, you're there because you want to connect with people, right? And you want to entertain them musically, and if they show an interest in what you're doing and an appreciation, it's only right that you just reciprocate great energy to them. Yes. You know.
So one thing I just want to hear a little. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about your time with Civitas. For those, I mean, I'm a fan. It was one of my first times, just really being at a live music venue, hearing a band just where the music just took me away. You can just tell just a little bit about what that band was, what it was, the experience was like for you.
And this goes back to the days when we met about 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So about 20 years ago, I was in college and playing in a sort of an improvisational band. I guess back then you could just call them jam bands. I guess people still call them jam bands. You know, and that was such a great feeling. We just played lots of different styles of music, and the compositions kind of had a lot of improvising sections in them, and it was great to learn about the instrument itself and expand my knowledge.
And do you ever see yourself being in a band like that again, or is this, now that you've become more of a established solo performer, do you feel like I like this better, or is there part of you maybe one day I'd like to be in a full band again?
Yeah, I think when my midlife crisis full on comes in, I think I'll probably want to play in a band again.
Okay.
It's not out of the question, and I've had some different ideas about how to merge sort of my fingerstyle ideas and into a band situation, but it's quite far on the horizon for me right now.
Right now, you've got your plate well filled with some, great
and
things.
I think that's kind of just riding that sort of that crest.
So you tell us a little bit more. I know just the guitar program that they have here in Albuquerque that you've been a part of. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, there's one part where I just feel really, really fortunate to be here in Albuquerque, because this is a city where there are guitar programs provided in many, many secondary schools. In fact, there's so many programs, I think that Albuquerque ranks probably still within the top 3 to 5 cities that offer secondary guitar education.
That's incredible.
Like middle school, high school, so many programs and all the teachers, we offer a legitimate curriculum that's similar to that of like a band or orchestra or choir class. So it's not just a bunch of kids learning metal songs.
Like there's true respect given to the music and the process.
Yes, the classical technique, learning how to read notation, competing in district events with your kids. I believe New Mexico was the first state in the country to include a giant guitar orchestra in their yearly all-state music festival.
Wow. And
so that's a big thing where the kids get to audition playing these really intense classical pieces and playing in a really large guitar orchestra. I call it guitarchestra.
Guitar J. Perez, that's a good word for that. I like that. That's amazing. I mean, it is. There's, Albuquerque gets a bad rap for all sorts of things, but there's some ways that this city, I think, is, it's my favorite city in the world, I gotta say, but there's some really, truly incredible things going on here.
There really is, yeah. yeah, from the arts to, you know, the educators in this town who, you know, work their butts off.
Yes.
It's really amazing, you
Yes.
know.
So I wonder if you could also, in these last few minutes before we hear one more song, you, between your teaching and your gigging, balancing so many things, what can you, what keeps you going? What is it, obviously it's a challenge, it's not an easy thing, but what advice do you have for people who say, oh, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that, when the amount you're doing is more than probably 3 full people do? But so what can you speak to as far as what fuels you? How do you deal with challenges? How do you do so much and yet you're always, you know, you have a good attitude, you don't seem frazzled, you just kind of have a, you know, I'm not saying you don't get that,
right.
But you know, how do you do it?
You know, I think I'd like to specifically answer that because I meet so many people in town and at my shows, and when they find out that I'm a guitar teacher, probably the number one thing I hear from a lot of people is, I wish that I played the guitar, or I wish I didn't give up the guitar.
Yeah.
And I always tell people the same thing lately, is just keep a guitar in the corner of your house or in a closet, but keep it out.
Yeah.
And there's this thing about music and in general where people like to sort of beat themselves up over it if they don't pursue it, they don't do it, or they're not great at it, or just do it for your own enjoyment. Because you don't have to go out there and be a professional. You just have to enjoy it.
And if you're enjoying it, you're serving the people around you, whether you're a professional, just by you doing something that brings you joy. And I think that's what I get from you when I see you perform, and I imagine, you know, in your classroom, people can feel that about you, that you're glad to be there, and you come with an open, loving heart. So I'm admire of you, and I'm honored to be your friend, and so glad to have you on the show. And tell us just a little bit about this last song you're going to take us out with here.
All right, this last song is by The Cure, and it's called Just Like Heaven. No looping, just straight finger style, chord melody.
All right.
Hey, thanks for having me, Seth.
Great to
appreciate it. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. All right, Laura Io Berg, it's a pleasure to have you. One of the reasons I'm so excited to hear about your story is because you are always doing so many things and you're so excited about what you're doing, which these days is a rare thing. A lot of times people, I have to do this, or I'm bored, this and that, and you are always up to things that you are excited about, and I can't wait to hear about them today.
Wow.
So
Thank you, Seth.
first, just maybe tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
And some of the different roles and hats you wear.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm kind of focusing with you today, you know, on some of my work as a psychiatric clinical nurse specialist. And I want to share some of my own healing path because I was a psych clinical nurse specialist, and as well I was a psychiatric consumer. So I was experiencing depression and taking psych meds and so forth. So I want to share that because it was
Thank you, because as we know, you're not alone, and many people, it's not something they talk about, but it's nice to hear someone who can share about
absolutely, absolutely. And and you know, it's sometimes it's a rough path to be alive in these times or any time. So just kind of want to share more of a pathway through non-ordinary forms of healing that kind of came to me, you know, unexpectedly, or maybe through my calling and, you know, searching over time. But so I want to share about that, and particularly if people can hold on through the end, I'd like to share about two things happening in Albuquerque with non-ordinary states of healing, profound states of healing.
Great, and we'll have links in the description.
Yep,
for all
and
things.
I'll talk more at the end about that, but that would be that we do have holotropic breathwork weekend coming up in Albuquerque the third week of July, the third weekend in July, which I'll describe later.
Okay.
And that we just newly have a study of psilocybin for depression that's opening at the UNM Family Practice Clinic. And I will be a therapist in that program. So I'm being called back to nursing after being, so I'm 71. I'm very happy to claim it because, yeah, you know, it's a gift to be alive.
Yes.
And it's also...
And you are making the most of your
I'm
time
trying to
here
make the most of it. I'm
point.
trying to, you know, find I feel like it's been a long process to come to accept, to live my own life, to show up for my own life, which I think is what, you know, we have to do to keep the juice and you know, kind of, and it's a little bit of the presence of the inner healer, you know, that's been important for me in terms of all the other things that I learned or perceived in the world.
And have you always been up to so many things? Like, you know, when you were 25 or something, are you a different person? You know, sometimes people, you know them their whole life and they've been kind of steady. Would you say, looking back at, you know, yourself years and years ago?
It's because I know you from music. You know, I'm a dabbler at music and art and poetry and you know.
Just being in the community.
Yeah, but I think that's been part of claiming you know, my life on earth is to say, hey, I'm also a creator, you know, that we're all creators. Everybody's got something, right?
Sure do.
You know, and it's not, and I don't need to be, you know, groveling on the ground, that somehow we can stand up and, you know, engage by having some kind of creativity. So, no, I think I was much more withdrawn. You know, I was fortunate enough to have a life that, you know, my parents traveled around the world, so we lived in different, you know, other countries, and there was a lot of mythology and anthropology and, you know, literature in the home. But I think it was really a great gift, even though it was hard at the time to be uprooted constantly, to have the gift of being in other cultures and how other cultures had ceremony, you know, how they express values. Certainly much more in my growing up about seeing polarities, seeing poverty and privilege, you know, seeing death and life, suffering, you know, which I think in our culture is really, we have a culture that's very...
don't talk about these things.
and so that's going on, you know, to what I want to say about my healing path is that, you know, in our culture, we don't acknowledge death. You know, we say, if, you know, pay enough money, you can be immortal. Right. You can, you know, doesn't matter about a good death, just put you on a machine, you know, and it'll pump your heart for you. And it's like, well, where, you know, where am I in my soul, or where am I with my family or my loved ones, or do I have loved ones? Also that the culture really entertains us away, you know, from looking at the shadow, the shadow of civilization.
And so where do you, so there's all these other things that society's pushing us, but what do you put your attention to and your time and energy? What are some of the,
well, so yeah, that's important. So that's really the kind of the essence of my personal healing path. That in my 20s and 30s and into my 40s, I was very confused just about seeing the polarity, you know, of life, and not finding a middle way through. You know, that it actually, you know, was so much, a lot of weight, you know, carrying. And that I was on multiple antidepressants and mood stabilizers at the same time, and anxiety meds, up to 4 meds at one time. And when they wanted to add a 4th medication to me, I said, you know, I really need a different paradigm here. I need to step out of
And so what is the other, what's the other paradigm that you...
Yes, yes. So I mean, it's been a long path, but what, so what I've seem to perceive, or so what I've learned is that to really kind of understand myself as on a soul path, from like a soul level, instead of like, you know, just a personality or an ego or a mind, you know, or, you know, any kind of expert, or to be any kind of, you know, groveling, you know, suffering person. I think suffering's important, you know, and that's part of the healing path, is actually to learn to listen to the body, you know, and to drop the mind, and that you know, again, this culture really wants to keep us in the mind. It really wants it wants you to go higher or lower on a ladder, and if you're higher, then you kick down the ones below, and you know, if you're higher, then you're good. And it's the same way of looking. I'm sorry, I know I'm going in a roundabout way to answer your question, but also the same model in our civilization is that the earth is bad, you know, that we will transcend and we will get away, and anything below the ground, which is, you know, a representation of feminine or female, or compost, you know, or regeneration, rebirth happens from the earth. So it was a chance to come into my body and learn that I can, you know, I can compost things within my body. That there's actually like a soul presence within me that kind of links me forward to my, or back to my ancestors, and forward, you know, to the human race. That I can be a personal, I can regenerate. And some of that has been through the holotropic breath work.
So tell us about, so many people are on, okay, I've been on this med, all these sort of things, and you know, a lot of times
it's hard to come off
so some of the breath work and some of these other things.
So I would say learning so it's more about somatic healing. You know, it's learning that your body has some wisdom, or learning that my body has some wisdom for me, not just my head. You know, and then again, the culture reinforces the head, but it's like, okay, what is that feeling? Where does that come from? You know, what is that sensation? Where does that come from? And often the body holds old memories, old traumas. There's losses for each and every one of us. We are all terminal, you know, we will all die. Everything we love will die, you know, and just to be in that, you know, recognition, you know, which I think is a state of grace, you know. So I would say some of the path work for me has been holotropic breath work.
And what, and for someone who has never heard that term, what is that? What is that?
I'll describe that in a little bit more, because we're doing an event, you know, in about 3 to 4 weeks here in Albuquerque. Let me just see my timing here. to talk about it. So holotropic breath work. So I should also say that I, in the meantime of being on psych meds, you know, and you know, suffering, you know, a lot of confusion and existential angst and personal trauma, that I was doing psychedelics, you know, that I was going to festivals. I was like trying to go out to festivals. And and I was stopping prescribed meds to go on, you know, plant medicines and other meds, but there was no integration. You know, there was no integration for how did these worlds fit together. I'm experiencing them. So I think some of coming into the body is to experience that, you know, to also experience the real polarities, you know, the shadow, the light, and that they're both, you know, elemental. You know, they're both elemental.
And with some of the psychedelics, some people, you know, who don't know, they might hear, oh, this is drugs are bad, these will only kill you. Like, what have you discovered in your experience?
And that's really important because, you know, people are randomly taking medications without any preparation, without an intent, without a guide. They're doing it predominantly in social settings, which is a bit of catch as catch can. And in the holotropic breathwork was originally created to substitute for psychedelics. When psychedelics were canceled, it was developed by Stan Groff and Christina Groff. And it's a journey that's inward. So again, there's no psychedelics, but it's also the same model as they use now in most psychedelic therapy. It's an inward journey. You know, it's not a lot of stimulation. You know, it's not social. And it's more of like going on the soul path or the soul journey. You wear eye shades. There's music that has an arc of experience. So the other aspects are like coming into ecstatic dance or coming into music, coming into journaling. Nature, you know, coming into nature. I mean, those are the kinds of integration, you know, that can be very, very helpful to integrate, you know, traumas from life, existential issues, you know, family issues, ancestral lineage. So the breathwork can be a very profound inner journey. It's an arc of about 3 hours of music where you have a dedicated sitter with you, and then you can engage some breathing at the beginning, and then kind of go to on a soul journey. And
so it's without necessarily psychedelics, but it's a bit of a psychedelic-like experience.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. But for me personally, it was very helpful to integrate some of my psychedelic experiences. You know. Because
could you speak a little bit just about the benefits you've seen or what they are? Because I know some people just as soon as they hear something about that, they're shut down and think, oh, this is because it's had association. Well, I would say,
you know, in the history of our planet, you know, people have used many different techniques to reach altered states. You know, to reach altered states, and often because it's a very profound and immediate form of healing. So ceremony can be another part of that as well. You know, ritual with other people. You know, symbolic. You know, altar creation. So that nobody. I mean, everyone should have support. Everyone should have a community and have preparation, you know, to do medicine.
So it's nothing to just take lightly, but
to do any of the non-ordinary states. You know, it needs to be in a community. It needs to have safe setting, and that's where things blew out of the water. I think, you know, in the '60s, is and still that people really would do it socially or for entertainment. And that's our culture too, is to entertain. You know, and to entertain ourselves rather than to sit still and kind of be in the body and feel and receive.
So I wonder if you could also tell us a little bit more in these last few minutes we have about the event that's coming up, and let people know how they can find out more about it and what to expect and who it might be
Thank you.
fitting for.
Thank you. So here, if we're going to put a link, I guess in writing, you know, something you can connect to. But here's our event here in Albuquerque. It's July 19th through the 21st at the Fusion, which is just a remarkable setting for music,
Yes.
lots of activities. If you want to scroll down, Mark, just show a little bit. If you can go to the link, there's a lot more information about how the weekend is set up. It's non-residential. It's a Friday evening, most of Saturday, into Sunday
And
morning.
we'll have your email available in case someone wants to ask you maybe further questions about
Absolutely. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention, yes, so we bring facilitators from around the country. We hope to have 18 people in the breathwork. And we do the breathing and sitting sessions in the Black Box Theater called The Cell. And then we also have an art process that's part of the discoveries that we have an art room that people go to after the breath work and try to capture something that's not linear, you know, not. And then I also just want to say that we're starting a study at UNM for psilocybin in the treatment of depression, and it just last week was opened for recruitment. So we're going to add that email. That's the salute at UNM, and that'll be a very exciting phase 3 study that's international with UNM.
I've been hearing so many people I know who've been tied to, who've struggled with the depression and had their Prozac and Zoloft, and it hasn't worked, and they've been going down this path and experienced miraculous results, at least for them.
I mean, people have to be screened.
Yes.
Same thing
like
for the breath work.
everything, it's not for everything is not for everyone.
Exactly.
There's not a one size
Exactly.
fits
Yeah. But people are welcome to email and try to be screened. You cannot currently be on antidepressants to be in the study.
For the study.
So you would need to be willing to taper off.
Got it.
You know, and but it does go for a year.
Okay.
And if you are given a placebo medication, then if you remain depressed after 6 weeks, then you have the opportunity to have an open label, which is to have an actual high dose experience and then be tracked again.
Okay. Well, it's been great to hear about this, and I look forward to hearing more, and people will be able to contact you and to find more about this. I wonder if you could just leave us with any closing thoughts. You know, people don't like to share their struggles or even admit they're struggling or having a tough time. Any words of wisdom to people who are kind of trapped in their head or in their same system that's not working?
You know, there is healing. There's a deep inner wisdom in each of us. And to slow down enough, detach from the models, you know, that are around you, and take some time to feel into your body and feel what your body might want, you know.
So listen to not just your mind, but listen to your body too.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, and I wish you continued energy and inspiration in all of the many things that you're doing and the healing that you are participating and sharing with the world.
Thank
and just
you.
More strength and power
It's
to
my passion.
keep doing what you're doing.
So, yes.
And we'll look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you, Seth.
All right.
Thank you.
Care. Thank you so much.
Everybody's got something that nobody else has got. Everybody, you're the only